Didn't know that.
That's why I picked you rather than explaining it first, because we're all going to be going through this together.
Well, yeah, I've been working with Isabel for about a year, a little over a year now, and since then I've learned a lot about her condition. But it's a very difficult thing, and thankfully she's gone through it enough and has been tested enough where she knows what her condition is. She knows what it is and what her limitations are infinitely better than I or anybody else does. She knows, because of what she's had to go through, she knows what has worked for her in the past, what has not worked for her. So that's helped us cut down a lot of my learning curve, so I don't have to waste her time trying to get caught up. She needs, no, that doesn't work. But it's just a very difficult for an individual to comprehend numbers. It's like a wall in front of you, and where you and I we might talk about, okay, which number is bigger, 17 or 15? Well, obviously we know what that is. But for someone with this condition, that concept is not apparent. It's not right there in front of her. She doesn't see them as related numbers. They're just things that aren't connecting. So what she has to do is, with her fingers and she's really big on writing things down. We're talking about a type of learning. She likes it, for her to write it down so she can see it in her own hand will make all the difference in the world. And then she'll have to do the math. She'll have to do 17 minus 15 equals, or she'll count 15, 16, 17. So you have those issues, and then coupled with the difficulty in retention. And we'll repeat things over and over again, and you'll see in the books that are out there, there's lessons, and there may be like 8 examples or 8 problems to work on. Well, that isn't enough. So I'll go home and I'll write up 20 or 40 of similar problems and email it to her, and then she'll work on that during the week, and I'll also send her the answers. So she'll have 2 different documents, problems and answers, so she'll be able to work on them. And then we review them the next day. But it's so much for her, it's repetition.
Thank you. Sure.
And now we're starting algebra, and that's going to pose a whole other set of problems.
I wish I were better educated on that. I've had a number of students with dyslexia, and I had to educate myself on that. But dyscalculia, I haven't. If you've not heard of it before, dyscalculia comes from, I'm pretty sure it's the Greek, which means literally it's like bad calculation, bad calculating. So it's trying to calculate and coming up with the incorrect answers. I'm not going to go through this whole handout for you. This is for your reference. But these are some signs, and as Bill was saying, it's not only not being able to do the functions, but it's also not really grasping the concept 17, or, I can't even imagine what she feels like if you work with larger numbers like 1,000, 100,000, a million. There's no representation. If I say 1,000, you've got some idea. You okay, Ed?
Yeah, I'm fine.
Okay.
Just keep writing to the bookshelf here.
Oh, okay. You've got some idea. It's 10 hundreds, right? A person with dyscalculia will find that not a natural thing to think, and also it's very difficult to learn. So there's a lot to do with hands-on learning. There's a lot to do with writing it out. And for those it's a spectrum. You've got the person on one end who teaches, advanced theory of blah, blah, blah at, Harvard. And at the other end, you've got the person who really honestly struggles to understand 2. I had 1 thing, now I've got 2. What has happened here? So it really is struggle learning pretty much any number-related concepts. So if your learner is uncomfortable with number-related activities, if they make mistakes copying and memorizing numbers, what they see on the page is not what they are able to write down.
Doesn't that kind of fall in with dyslexia?
It can, but it can be totally separate. I have seen students who are absolutely fine with their writing, and maybe not writing great tones, maybe not the next Shakespeare, but still doing fine with the literacy aspect. It's only with numbers that they have these issues.
My student is that way. She's working on English as part of her GED, but she's fine with that. She can write very good essays and such, but everything else in her life is okay. It's just the math and numbers is this disconnection.
And let's go back just a second. Historically, it's not been very, very long that we've had sort of a diagnosis of dyslexia or dyscalculia. So a lot of our adult learners will be old enough to remember times when teachers did not know, especially if they had older teachers who weren't fresh out of school. There wasn't a concept of dyslexia, dyscalculia, and how to work with it.
Do you know what dysgraphia is?
And now I've heard of it, and I can only imagine it.
We kind of touched on it. We touched on it like last semester in my intro to teaching class, but it didn't. I didn't understand it. I didn't understand the difference between that and dyslexia.
I've not studied it, but just by its name, I would think it's an utter lack of comprehension of graphic material, charts and graphs. We see this a lot now. A couple of words of warning. Firstly, your students will sometimes self-diagnose. Isabel has been diagnosed with dyscalculia. She knows she's got it. A lot of your learners
with Isabel on Wednesday, helped her
you're
correct her essay.
Oh,
yeah.
Is it for the newsletter?
It was a
preview.
Oh my god. It's it was like a persuasive.
Oh, okay. Oh, bless her. All right. She's doing work other than for me. All right.
The nerve.
She's on the hook now. So yeah, you will have learners come to you sometimes with dyscalculia or dyslexia. I'm sure I've got it because I'm not very good at math. No, I'm not very good at math, but I don't have dyscalculia. Like, don't let me self-diagnose. So anytime they say that to you or dyslexia, lots of people love to say they've got dyslexia. They almost never have. So if they say that to you, the next perfect and only, I think, question is, have you been diagnosed with that? Have you been tested? Did someone say that to you? A learning professional? No, I just know. Well, okay. Then let's get into, so what are you having difficulty with? 9 times out of 10, they think they've got dyslexia, they're a bad speller, they just haven't learned to spell properly yet. 9 times out of 10, 9.5 at least, with dyscalculia, they haven't got that. They just haven't wrapped their minds around the concepts yet. There's that spectrum. They're still at the lower end of learning, and maybe it's just harder for them. So just be careful with that. Now, if you do suspect, because your learner is having difficulty keeping a checkbook, managing a bank account, getting directions, using a map, trouble with everyday calculations, if they can't tell you 1 + 1 without writing it down or counting fingers, or asking you, what do you mean? That's kind of a clue. Time-related issues, because time is not a concept. It's a concept the rest of us divide in numbers, seconds, minutes, hours, what have you. If they have a really difficult time with the idea, or can't really grasp, this is a 2-hour workshop, what does that mean? And you say, well, it means that it lasts for 2 hours, from 2 o'clock until 4 o'clock, they still don't grasp it. You may have a learner with dyslexia, or dyscalculia. We do not have specialists here. I intend to have specialists come in the future and talk with us more about these topics. I'm only touching upon it because I was speaking to one of our tutors the other day, and I happened to mention Isabel's story, and we're so excited she's writing it up. And the tutor stopped. We were walking side by side, and she stopped, and she said, well, now, what is that? And I explained this to her a little bit, and she said, oh, I've got a learner I'm sure has got it. We have been working on simple addition for weeks, and I thought it was me, and then I didn't want to think it was her. I didn't know what to do. Here we go. Now, she told me some other things, and it does sound like dyscalculia. Come tell us, because firstly, we want to adjust the way that we're teaching, which we'll get to in a second. But also, if we need to signpost them on to some place where they can get more direct help with that learning difficulty, then let's do that. So, quick think. Which learning method or methods do you think would work best in tutoring an adult with dyscalculia? Take a couple of minutes, and you're very quiet, so probably you can take one, to discuss this in this group here. We don't need to separate into smaller groups. Learning method, visual, auditory, reading and writing, or kinesthetic, or some combination thereof. There's a magic answer and there are other answers. They're also correct.
I was going to say it sounds like a combination. I don't, it just sounds like, well, in my day, they were called readiness skills, math readiness. So you couldn't go into counting and all these other things to do math until you had number sense. And if that's not established, then you really are a student. You always kind of do things and make lines and do pictures and everything else.
Yeah, poor student, and I'm glad that you said that because that is the historical way of thinking of things. Before about the mid to late 80s when we started getting psychology more strongly involved in education. Yeah, poor skills, lazy kid, not trying, thick. And a lot of our adult learners come to us with real, I call it math panic. They have real fear of the, and that's the point of this graphic here with the numbers on this monster with the hammer hands. This is what dyscalculia and just low-level skills in general feels like. There is a panic. I have had grown men break down crying, trying to solve a problem. And I say, no, come back. Remember your mantra. Do your breathing. Come on, it's okay. Look, this problem, we're just trying one little step higher than the last one. That's all. But it weighs on them too much. And then you got to step back, refresh, calm down, bring them back a step, bring them to what you were just working on. But it feels like this monster, this thing. And even if they don't have dyscalculia, there's been a lack of understanding about whatever their barrier to learning is in the past, or they just never grasped it. And, the teacher just didn't, not explain it badly, but didn't explain it in the way that reaches their brain cells.
Math is one of those subjects that just has to be taught sequentially. You just can't skip this stuff and that, and you will do this and do that.
Right, and one kid with one semi-long-term illness can get lost for a good number of years or possibly life if they don't have access to tutoring to back them up and get them started again. Yeah, one, lengthy stay in the hospital for a broken leg or something, and they can get behind. And boy, in schools, they've got it prescribed. This day we're on these pages, and this day we're on those pages, and it doesn't take long to get lost. So, tutoring tips. This is what we're all here for, really. These are do's and don'ts, mainly they're just do's. But do use VARC methods, our learning methods. You haven't got to stick to the page. Now, saying that, you will always have your worksheets, your reading assignments, your whatever ready for you in your folder. This is evidence for learning. So we will be doing stuff on the page. There should be no fear about using the worksheets. They're an important part of what we do. But don't be afraid to bring in some of the things we're going to see on the tables in just a minute here. Don't be afraid to use some other method. If the page isn't working and working out the problems isn't, grab some colored balls, grab some fake money, grab your mini whiteboard, what have you. Do center your work around the learning session. You may have in your mind how this session is going to go based on how the last sessions have, but if your learner veers off a little bit and you get on a topic all hot and heavy because finally the fractions make sense, don't hesitate to move into percentages then or some other thing and add to the learning experience while they're on it, make use of it. So if you go off piece a little, that's great. Make sure that you reflect that in your notes at the end of the session, so Esther doesn't give you what you've already covered in the next session. So do bring in extra materials you may find useful. Do present information in a number of ways to ensure meaning is clear. I loved, may I call you Joni?
Yes.
I love Joni's answers. Use a number of methods. Do this, and whether it's your low-level learners, your higher-level learners, your literacy learners, use a number of ways, your auditory and your vision. You're saying the instructions while they're reading the instructions. Okay, they're reading and it's auditory. Do the math with them, show them first, and then have them do it too. But explain to them what you did. We've got auditory and kinesthetic. Do ask open-ended questions to check comprehension and ask frequently. Please give me examples of open-ended questions. And it takes some practice for some people to get something other than, do you understand? Because what you twitched your head just that much. You were like ready to shake it. Yes, I understand.
Yeah.
I didn't even ask you a question, but you're already twitching yes. So what are some open-ended questions so we don't get a knee-jerk yes reaction?
It's like not yes or no questions.
Right. Like, make up anything.
Like why?
Why? Why did you work the problem that way? Say stuff to me. Tell me stuff. What else?
Show me.
Yeah.
How you do.
Exactly. Show me how to.
Show me how to.
Last time we talked about division. Show me how to divide 10 by 2. And give them the opportunity, whether they want to show you in a kinesthetic way or tell you or write it down. Yeah. But have them not be able to say yes or no, because they'll almost always say yes, because they don't want to be the thicko in the classroom again, right? Ask open-ended questions, have them repeat back to you what you've said. Can you tell me what we talked about just a minute ago about dividing by 10? And then he said, this learner is obviously going to be difficult, so we'll just report him to staff and get another one. All right. If at all possible, do ask learners, and we don't normally do this here, but do ask learners working on the same subject at the same level to work together on a game project or activity if you can and if it's appropriate. Generally, we're one-to-one tutoring here, but if you know that there's a student at the next table whose tutor hasn't shown up yet or has called in sick or what have you, bring that student over. You know what? We were just doing a Tarsia puzzle, and it's a really big one. Can you all work this out together? Now, I hear that you're working on fractions and decimals and percentages. Well, that's what we're working on too. Why don't you guys work together? What do you think? It's called peer tutoring. It is extremely effective because it removes the element of the know-it-all teacher, because a lot of people think teachers know everything, and it's just two people at the same level helping each other out. It's extremely effective. We don't always do it here. I mean, what we do is effective as well, obviously, but if the situation comes up, don't shy away from it.
Yeah. Can I ask a question?
Please.
Let's see, what's the one you just read? It's the first one. Present information in another ways. Okay. I'm thinking that maybe I read this on paper. If you use different information to present it in a different way, do I need to consult with each of you to bring in something? Because you might have your own curriculum.
We do.
To understand.
We have our own curriculum. You will be understanding it because I will be introducing it in a minute. But, no, you don't have to consult with me. If you've got something you think, okay, we struggled last time, we were just starting pre-algebra, we got that letter in there and things went kablooey. So, I know I've got this thing I used before that my kid uses, my grandkid uses, my nephew, something I saw on the internet, bring it in. Bearing in mind that, you're going to, first of all, if you look at any of my stuff, it's usually in English, so the spellings are weird. I always have to go back and remake stuff so that I take the weird spellings out. please don't confuse your learners. Taking out anything that might look kind of childish or whatever, trying to make it look, kind of more grown up. But yeah, as long as it's not offensive or way out of left field somehow, or, if it's a totally different way of doing math, just completely different method, something brand new, no one's tested before, I talk to Thomas first. Has everyone met Thomas? Okay, so I would talk to Thomas or Esther before anything that seems off the wall, but if it's just something that's going to highlight or make visual or kinesthetic that information you're already doing, go for it. Yeah.
And actually, I would share it with Thomas and Esther because we can add that to our curriculum.
True.
Add that to what we have.
True.
So we're always looking for curriculum that works best for students.
Absolutely. Do math problems or situations learners will encounter every day, like budgeting, shopping, bills, etc. It's best not to have them bring their own bills in and their own budgets because that's personal information and, blah, blah, confidentiality, let's not. But you can, on that skills-wise workshop, the link that I was showing you earlier, they have a whole bunch of fake budgets, shopping lists, bills, etc. That you can adapt and use for a lesson. Do talk, and please don't bring your own, mail in. Do talk with learners about concepts, not just rules or formulae. Let's remember that that there's that level of understanding that is involved now for the GED, and I keep mentioning that because the reason the GED was written like that is because to be fully literate, we need to understand why we do the things we do, why the formula works, why the rule works, and be able to apply it in other situations. So always do talk about concepts. Do not, or try to minimize the number of times you use child's resources. In this country, we have a really hard time finding stuff that is geared towards children. But if it's at all possible, let's not remind people that they are not learning at the same level as their children or their neighbors' kids or what have you. Any questions on this?
I always try not to like if, especially in math, like if I hear somebody in math, I try not to say, bring up that, my 12-year-old is working on that. I just don't do that because it just makes me feel bad.
If you ask me, you didn't, but I'll tell you, I don't love the fact that we teach people their grade level. But I learned teaching in England where they've got level 1, 2, 3, pre-level 1, 2, 3. So there's never an association with kids. So I usually tell students when I tutor here, okay, yes, you're heard, 4th grade, fine. You know what? Take that number, pull it right on out. We're not married to that number. Also, when people take their assessments, I like to remind them, you're nervous, you've been here for the first time, you're wondering if people are looking at your answers, are people judging you, are you the only one in this level? And that can affect your assessment score. So that's not really a true reflection of all that you are. That's just how you did on this assessment. It's closer than, a guesstimate, but let's not get married to that number because it's not all that accurate. I understand.
That's a good approach. Just move it out because you can't do it.
Some learners, and I talk a lot about worst-case scenarios, and most learners kind of take it in stride, but there are some learners who are fixated on that number, and I've had some that takes me 3 weeks to get them to stop saying the number. So do encourage learners to set and plan goals, including action steps for their learning. This way they can track their progress because it helps them see, I am learning, I can do this. Changing that concept, especially for the math learner, I cannot learn, I'm quick, I'm slow, I'm stupid, everybody said I couldn't, blah, blah, it's half your battle in tutoring. So the value is in these things. It builds confidence. Meaning is what I'm talking about here. It has them take ownership of their learning in a way that you wouldn't do with kids. And it will relate to their everyday life. I love them to do a story. This is where I want to be. 3 months, 6 months, 12. And when they figure out how to use the bus schedule, which Ariel does naturally, right? But once they figure out, oh my God, I know what it means, because our numbers going this way and it's numbers going this way, I understood it, and I got myself where I needed to go. Have them bring that schedule in or a copy of it, slap it on that storyboard, watch them build their progress. And always do realize, remember, that learning math can be an emotional experience for some learners. Remember, they're going to look at you like you know everything. And how come you learn? And in fact, you, my tutor, you're younger than I am. You're 18, 19 years old, and I'm years old. And I'm trying really hard because, you know, when I look at college, bring that emotion right out of it if you can. Give them time to work through it. So, finally, never be afraid. Never ever be afraid to ask for help, ideas, or suggestions. Tutoring is rewarding, but it can be a bit of a challenge. Please make sure that you learn who the staff members are. So if you only know me, Kate, I know Kate, hi, haven't been. Amy, nice to meet you. Kate Moore, volunteer marketing coordinator. Carolyn, you all know Thomas and Esther, I'm just guessing. Trees. Oh, don't worry, you don't need to let me pull it back in. So, let us take less minutes than I thought. Fewer than I thought. Let's take any questions while we're here. Questions, thoughts, concerns before we go on to the other room.
Okay.
Let us adjourn to the other room where I'm explaining what we're doing next. I'd like you to work in pairs if you can, please. But pairs that you're not, pairs not associated by marriage or diversity. Let's get it.
Wonder.
That